So we're going to just jump into it, and a big hello to our Highlights Foundation family. We're so happy to have you here with us. For those that may not know me, I'm Kat Galliano, and I'm the social media manager for the Highlights Foundation, aka the person that always responds to your responds to all your shares and your comments. So yeah, that's me. And I'm joining you from Westchester, New York, on the traditional lands of the Siwanoy people. For those that may not know, I am also a writer, but also a reader. So I am very, very, very excited to have this lunchtime chat with our friends and faculty, Nora Shalaway Carpenter and Mitali Perkins, who will be teaching the upcoming mini Talk to Me, the ins and outs of dialogue that drives plot and delivers readers' satisfaction. It is quite a mouthful of a title, but I think it says everything that we need to know about it. So we're gonna just dive a little bit and give people a little preview of what to expect for the class, because we can't give away all the good things. That's why you have to join us. But we're gonna give it just a small sampling. So my first question for both of you is, I love this topic for the webinar, and dialogue can do so much in a story. So first I wanted to start with, what is a memorable piece of dialogue that you didn't write that you really thought brought the story or the novel that you were reading to life?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and jump in here. So I'm not actually sure that I'm going to use this in the presentation, but it's so good, so I'm going to talk about it anywhere. If it's this is actually a novel for adults, but it really doesn't matter. I think you should study all different kinds of works. So in Richard Osman's The Last Devil to Die, which all of his Thursday Murder Clubs books, I think, have incredible dialogue and really, really bring all four of his main characters to life. But there is this wonderful scene in which the four main characters are sitting with two very important secondary characters in a funeral service, and they're having an important conversation, and it makes sense if you read the book why that's happening. But anyway, it's like interspersed between you hear what's happening from the priest who's leading the service, and then you hear the snippets of dialogue, and then they respond to each other, and it is like so funny, and so like you're like in the moment, and I think it shows such great like how to use beats really well, and also how it brings each individual character to life. So that's what I wanted to highlight for that question.
Oh,
Awesome.
wow. You made me want to
Oh,
read it.
it's so
Awesome.
good. Everyone should
I'm
read that.
sold
Like,
too.
yeah.
Well,
Start with the first one though.
yeah, good. Okay. Well, hello to all of you, and I love seeing you, Kat, talking to you. I know that if I post something on Instagram and I don't get a little, my auntie's so cute, or I love my auntie, it feels like it wasn't a successful post. So anyway, I'm going throwback. Here we are. My tattered. Look at all the. I just wrote about this. So,
Oh my
and
gosh.
I'm just. I mean, I have it memorized. Christmas won't be Christmas without any presents," said Joe, laying on the rug. I know that that's the first line, and then Meg says, actually, she grumbles. "Christmas won't be Christmas without any presents," grumbled Joe, lying on the rug. "It's so dreadful to be poor," sighed Meg, looking down at her old dress. "I don't think it's fair for some girls to have plenty of pretty things and other girls nothing at all," added little Amy with an injured sniff. "We've got father and mother and each other," said Beth contentedly from her corner. All right, so I love that beginning because it's four sisters. Each thing they say is so distinctive to their characters, to their growth, to their narrative arc, and we can just see them sitting by the fire. And what I love about that piece of dialogue is it's something that we're going to work on in the webinar, is this idea that each character should say something very distinctive, both to their narrative arc of the to their character arc, because all four of these characters are going to change through the story. We can get a glimpse of what they want from each of those pieces of snippets of dialogue. So it serves the plot, but it also they're distinctive in that they serve to characterize, right? So, and we also get a sense of place, and that's what I love about dialogue. It's in the moment, and if you can write it well, each character says something that only they would say in that moment of time, in that trajectory of action and change in their lives, and that befits their own voice and character. So I just love it so much. It's such a powerful tool. We're gonna have fun nerding out over particular nouns and verbs and what to do with taglines and how to we're just it's such a place where writer nerds like us can really geek out with the tools of our trade, which are
So
words.
Yeah.
I wanted to,
Oh,
oh, sorry, Nora, go
well, I was
ahead.
just going to say, Mitali hit on something that's like a really big theme, obviously, of the webinar is that dialogue does so many things. Great dialogue does way more than one
Mhm.
thing as it's being written. And another thing that I just wanted to comment on real quick is because we are going to be talking about the difference between like real dialogue that you're going to hear from
Mhm.
your friends, or sometimes I get like feedback, like if I'm giving feedback on writers, and people will be like, well, I've heard people say that's how they talk in real life. And so yes, that's true, but there is a big difference between the dialogue that we want to put in our fiction and the dialogue that is in real life, and we'll talk about why that is and the
I,
differences.
I just wanted to say, just like from a nerdy reader perspective, like just the magic that dialogue can do in a story. Like, honestly, sometimes I don't have the book with me and I'm just like, oh, I wish I could just run over to my bookshelf and grab it. But there's one book that has stayed with me for a long time. It's Where She Went by Gail Forman. And just how short that book is. I think it's 120 pages. And just like the words, I read that book over a decade ago and I still think about it at least once a week. And I'm like, wow,
Wow,
she
that's
really did
amazing.
that. Like dialogue really can do that. So
Mm-hmm.
I find it like so exciting that this class is going to happen, this webinar, and that both of you are going to talk about it from like the reader perspective, from the writer perspective. So I can't wait to watch it. So I will be tuning in and I hope all of you sign up too. Just a little plug. But we're going to jump into our second question, which is basically, I'm going to ask you the same question, but about your own works. Can you tell us about a favorite or crucial piece of dialogue in one of your own novels and what it unlocked in your story, or maybe what you thought it would help unlock for your readers?
You want to go first, Nora? Go ahead.
You can go.
Oh,
I
okay.
went first on the first one.
All right. Well, as you guys know, I'm drawn into this wonderful webinar at the last minute. I just got back from a writers' conference in Big Sur with my literary agency, Andrea Brown Literary Agency, and so I'm going off the seat of my pants here. But I do remember there's always one line in one of my stories that not only does it reflect the characters and the interaction and the plot, but it comes deeply out of my own life and my own heart. It's a line of dialogue um, that has spurred me on in my own quest. So I always remember it. It's in Rickshaw Girl, and the character Naima, like me, comes is a daughter in a sonless family, in the Bengali family, and of course, in our culture, having no sons is quite the shameful thing in the village. And so, she's growing up. She's hearing a lot about if you're a boy, you could help your father. If you're a boy, you could earn money. And there's one place in the story where um, everybody's coming after her because she's not a boy and she can't contribute economically. And the father's never ever said that. His entire life, he's been a supporter for her. And so he says, a daughter is just as good as a son. And for me, I heard that from my dad. So I got to put that line from my own life. It's kind of the heart of the book,
Mhm.
the heart of the story, the
Mhm.
blessing she gets from her father that spurs her on to invest in her art. So I think the reason I remember that is because it's my voice and my life that I use to enrich the dialogue, the
Mhm.
emotional
Mhm.
resonation in my own life. And that's another thing that we can explore as writers, like the things that are so meaningful to us. If we put them in the words of our characters, they land in a different way, in a really rich way.
Yeah. And I love that how that one line really speaks to like the whole theme of the book. You're like, okay, what's the
Yep.
book about? It's in this one line,
Yep.
right? Like that's really powerful. I love that. Okay, so we're also going to be talking a lot about subtext with dialogue in the webinar, and so I like as a reader, I just can't get enough of like of dialogue that you're like, oh, there's more going on here. I can tell. It's just like exciting when you can be like, oh, I can figure it out. So one of the in my debut novel, The Edge of Anything, a scene that I've always really loved, and which sticks with me, is when it's between two best friends and they're having this moment where the main character, she has just found out that she has a serious heart condition and she can no longer do the thing that she loves to do, but she's keeping this from her best friend because she has kind of this irrational hope that she's somehow going to be able to get back to that position. And then so her friend is trying to get this out of her and she's shut her down. So then her friend is telling her, hey, well, I have some news. And then it's awesome news about the same sport, right? That the friend can no longer play. And so the reaction of the main character to hearing like that her best friend is actually doing the thing that she wanted to do and now will probably never be able to, she does not say like, oh, that's terrible, and she's so conflicted because like she wants to feel good for her friend. It's her best friend, like she wants to be a good friend, but she also has just this horrible, horrible feeling of jealousy and despair because that can never be her reality. And so I was actually looking at the scene, like when you sent those preview questions, Kat, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's actually not a lot of dialogue here. Like because like you get like her inner, like there's so many like internal beats. And so it's really interesting to look at like the putting the dialogue just together without that meat and how it changes, like how it changes once you have those internal things. So yeah, and I have lots of other examples from other writers that we're going to be like studying to see, because I just like love subtext.
Like, isn't that so cool though? Like, words are so magical because, like you said, like if you remove the subtext,
Yeah,
the dialogue would not hit
no,
like when you infuse the subtext. And I'm like, oh,
right.
words, so cool, love it. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I'm like, I
And
cannot wait for this.
along with that, there's those nonverbal
Yeah.
beats in the scene that
Mhm.
can show, show the subtext of the emotion, like whether it be the shrug or the eye roll, but using that sparingly,
Mhm.
but to show that what's being said actually is contradicting with what's being felt. And
Exactly.
that's really fun to play with because you can see it in real time, so you can add in the beats, the nonverbal beats, which are really fun.
Mhm.
That is so cool. Oh man, I can't wait for this class. So my third and final question is, if you're on the fence about writing some element or part of your story, or it should be dialogue or not, are there any specific steps you take in your creative process to help you figure it out?
Well, for me, I think if it's a really big scene, if it's an important scene, I almost always put it in dialogue first anyway. Just because sometimes I need to figure out, like, I might actually know what the overall what's happening, but I need to see like how the characters individually will react to each other, and sometimes it surprises me. Sometimes it ends up, I'll end up shortening it a lot, but if it's more often that I struggle with like smaller
Mhm.
scenes that I'm like, oh, I don't know if this should be in dialogue or not, and then I kind of do the opposite where I will chunk it out in exposition and then go back and just be like, oh, like I think we need to like embrace it a little more, like we need some more meat here.
Yeah, I usually start out with dialogue now too because I'm one of those writers that, my character will wake up, brush their
Yeah.
teeth, comb their hair, and like
Right.
it's just like it just takes forever to get to that place where something happens, but dialogue gets you in that moment. So I usually
Right.
now what I do is when I'm mapping out my novel, I'll pick all the different places because of course setting also
Mm-hmm.
really can contribute to good dialogue, right? There's some things we say when we're only in a particular place. So I'll pick a place, pick who's in that scene, and then I'll just start writing the dialogue. And as Nora said, later on we can cut it, but it gets you in that real time so you're not dragging along in all the in-between moments. And she tied her shoes.
Right.
Go on and on. And I have, it gets you away from that narrative voice that tells a lot of backstory. And then you can fill it in later, but it gets you in real time with the characters, moving them forward so you don't have, and then later on you could say, does it need backstory here? And if so, where do I put it in? So it's a great tool to get started when you're stuck.
Absolutely. I agree. And I'll sometimes when I'm writing, I don't know if you do this, Mitali, but like I will write the dialogue with just the tags, like he said, she said, and no beats at all. And sometimes
Ooh.
I'll feel it and I'll be like, beat, but I'll just like move on because I want to get like just to the voice, you know? And that way, like, go back and add that. And sometimes that can be like really eye-opening too, because you can be like, oh, it took me 2 pages, but this is actually what I want the characters to say. Like, this is the part that needs to be in the book.
Oh my gosh, Nora, that's brilliant. I'm going to try that. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm also like, ooh, I'm gonna go rewatch this after I finish and take that note
Yeah.
down.
No, because I love that. Just what they said, as if you're eavesdropping on a real conversation. You're not, and you're hearing it. It's the audio, right? Just the audio.
Exactly.
So separating the audio from the video in your mind, and
Mhm.
that's really good. I'm going to use that too. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, of course.
We're getting like nuggets, golden nuggets here, people. So I hope you try to incorporate that into your work because that is cool, and I definitely want to try that out too. Um, so our conversation is coming to an end, but honestly, I could sit in here and talk with all of you for another 20 minutes if it were up to me. So thank you so much for being with us. And if you'd like to learn more from Nora and Mitali, please make sure to sign up for their class. Talk to Me, the ins and outs of dialogue that drives plot and delivers reader satisfaction, taking place February 27th and 29th. You can register for the webinar on our website at highlightsfoundation.org. And lastly, you can purchase Nora and Mitali's books at our virtual bookshop powered by bookshop.org. Thank you, Mitali. Thank you, Nora, for joining us today. We
Thank
cannot
you.
wait to see you online.
All right, see you guys.
Bye,
Bye.
Looking
everyone.
forward to
Thank
it.
you.
Bye.
You.